My name is Eric McClear. I am the president of the Northern Macomb Regional Chamber of Commerce. And this is our first event here in Richmond, so thank you, Richmond, for bringing us. Awesome, thank you. Also like to thank some of the sponsors. I want to first start off with PGS Dentistry. Really appreciate the sponsorship. Also a sponsorship from Macomb County. Again, thank you. And last but not least, Richmond Schools. And thank you for bringing the students. Cheers. Everybody ready? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you, everyone. Sometimes we got to improvise a little bit, and that's okay. All right. Now at this time, I'm going to bring up Mr. Jeff White. He's going to lead the show today. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Good morning. I just want to, again, make a special shout out to the folks at all the sponsors, including the folks at PGS, but I only mention them because has anybody in the room ever gone to PGS and asked for money and they don't give it to you? I mean, I'm not sure how poor Brian Pradko will ever retire. So it's really a pleasure to be here this morning. You were supposed to get Judge Jennifer Andery and this morning, and unfortunately she had court, really unfortunately, because, you know, Her Honor is charming and witty and lovely, and you got stuck with me. So I'll start with my apology. The next group I just want to mention real quickly so we don't forget to make a shout out to them is the future leaders of Macomb County that are here. And that is, I know our superintendent of schools brought with him a number of students. And, you know, for those of us that are a little grayer, a little balder, or have a few more wrinkles, you know, we need to look to our future and the young people who begin to understand local government and spend a little time with us to get a taste of that here this morning. I told them I hope by the time they leave, they won't wish they were still in first hour. So thank you so much to Richmond Community Schools and the students that are here. All right, I think the next thing I'm supposed to do is invite the speakers to the stage and also introduce the dignitaries. But they're on two different pieces of paper, I think. So the speakers that I'd like to introduce to the stage at this point are John Paul Rea, Deputy County Executive, Vicki Rowinski from Macomb County Planning and Economic Development. Is Senator Lowers here? I did not see him in the room as yet this morning. And Michigan State Representative and our Richmond's own Jamie Green. I also want to make sure, or maybe I don't. They've cut me off already. There we go. There's a couple other folks that are in the audience this morning that I want to make certain that we recognize that won't be speaking today, but are here to listen to our group of speakers, and they are. Mayor Tim Ricks is here with us this morning, Mr. Mayor. Councilman Mike Mistrovich. Yeah, I think this keeps going off. I have a pretty loud voice, so it keeps shutting off by us. So we can keep working through. I think I can yell loud enough to be heard for now. The Lennox Township Treasurer, Kathy Honnell. Supervisor, Mark Graybaugh. I also saw County Commissioner and Chair Don Brown here. And I do not know if I saw her this morning, but Village of Romeo Clerk Catherine Trapp. Catherine, all right. Well, the next person I get to introduce, and it's always I get the real pleasure of introducing him a number of times throughout my career. Once I introduced him wrong as the sheriff, when in fact he was the county executive by then.
Always the sheriff. Always the sheriff.
And but a little bit about a history, because it's a fun story. When I came to Richmond, Mark Hackle was the supervisor of the dispatch center for Macomb County. In those days, I couldn't say he was the supervisor of the dispatch center for the 911 because there was not 911. And when I say that to people who are kind of under 40-ish, they say, what do you mean there wasn't 911? And I said, well, we had to dial a 7-digit number, a 10-digit number, or if all else failed, a 0 to get police and fire. And we called the local funeral home to get an ambulance. Now that seemed like a conflict of interest for So that's kind of where our careers started, and I've watched him move up through the ranks, if you will, to deputy, to leadership within the sheriff's department, to the sheriff's job itself, and now to our county executive. And so I've done this introduction a number of times, but never before have I introduced him as J.P. Reyes warm-up band. So with that, Mark, the stage is yours.
Thanks, Jeff. Staff meeting's going to be great this week.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. I don't know if I need the microphone either, but we'll How's that working? Is it working good? Very good. Timing is perfect, Jeff. I think you may be right. They were just trying to cut you off on the microphone here. So, with that being said, I do want to thank you, Jeff, for that lovely introduction. And I actually make no bones about it. I am the warm-up act when it comes to Vicki Rowinski and JP when it comes to economic development. I think many of you noticed that. But Jeff, you mentioned the background in law enforcement, and I can't help but go there. 30 years in police work is something that I truly enjoyed. But that being said, we have come a long way here in Macomb County when it comes to public safety, and I do need to take a moment to recognize a fellow law enforcement officer who happens to be here, Chief of Police. I know we mentioned all the dignitaries in the room all the time, but going back from public safety, that is the number one responsibility of any government entity. I don't care if it's local, if it's county, if it's state, if it's federal. We need to continue to support our police, and I know we have Tom Costello here, the Chief of Police in Richmond as well. So let's give him a round of applause. And on that note, I'm not here as a primary speaker. You have two wonderful folks here. They're going to kind of enlighten you as to what's happening here in Macomb County, specifically in the north end. As I mentioned, JP and Vicki, they truly understand and are passionate and are your business partner, and we're here making sure we're continuing to make those connections. But in Macomb County, we are forging ahead on a number of things that are very important. Two things I just wanted to bring up. I think many of you heard about it in the news and kind of recognize what we're seeing at Selfridge Air Base is an incredible asset, not only locally here for Macomb County, for the state, but again, it has a national impact. And at Selfridge, not only are we going to continue to fight what we call for the fighters, because really, when we're seeing what's happening around the globe, Selfridge really is a location that has an impact on our nation's defense. But seeing what's happening to the south and knowing that there's these concerns about the border and the bigger challenges that we're concerned about here in the north as to what's happening with the northern border, we are very fortunate because now there's an incredible investment that's going to be taking place at Selfridge Air National Guard Base that is going to be the location for the northern protection for our country. And so we're very excited, and we're going to continue to fight for the fighters, but we're going to continue to see that we're protecting our borders right here at Selfridge Air National Guard Base in Macomb County. So Selfridge is our hometown air base, and it's gone beyond just becoming an air base for us. The other is obviously, as you hear me talking about all the time, the issue dealing with the jail, the county jail, the aging facility, the need to change it. But the change that we're making is going to be focused on something more than just creating bed space for people that commit crimes in this county. Many of us have known and recognized challenges we have faced with substance abuse, mental health issues. And here in Macomb County, we are doing something different. We got complete support from the Board of Commissioners, Don Brown, the chair of the board, in making sure that the funding was there so that we're not trying to figure out how do we manage this by, I guess, if you will, putting forth a millage to support this, which wouldn't be supported, I believe, by the public because people don't want to see their taxes going to a new jail. But we found a way of using funds that we got back from the federal government, state government, thanks to Jamie and the team up there, as well as obviously from the county. And this facility that we're embarking on is going to be something transformative, not just because we need a new jail, but because it's going to have an impact on mental health and substance abuse, one that is going to be looked upon throughout the entire country as to how we did it here in Macomb County. And it's something I'm incredibly excited about, and it is a responsibility of the county to make this happen, not the locals. And that's why we recognize we're taking on our responsibility, going to manage this as we construct through this particular process here. So with that being said, there is going to be a unique opportunity for folks. Coming up, we're going to make an announcement. Those that want to see the old section of the jail, and it is something that you would see in some of the old-time movies, we're going to open up the doors for people to actually tour the old D blocks and the maximum security wings of that facility. You'll have a chance to come on in here. We'll probably have some black and white striped uniforms if you want to don one while you get a picture behind the bars. Some of you, it may have been something you've done once upon a time and just kind of want to redo, but for some it may be a unique opportunity, and we do want to offer it up for the schools because it is a unique thing for some of the schools and the programs they have to see what was once upon a time the way that we manage the care of prisoners in these facilities as opposed to what is going to be happening in the future. So again, in Macomb County, we're embarking upon some incredibly big projects, and that jail project will be the largest construction project in the history of Macomb County, and we're excited about that. So with that being said, I was only given 3 minutes. As you can tell, I already took 6. I'm going to turn it back over to Jeff so that he can continue to MC this program, and we'll try to get it moving along. So again, thank you for allowing us in Macomb County to work with you to try to figure out how do we make your communities better. Thank you very much.
So for years, Judge LeDuc had done this, and I filled in for him when he had court on a given Monday morning. And he always threatened that if speakers went too long, he had 2 options. One was a gavel, and the other was a contempt order, whatever in the world that means. Okay, so we're going to invoke that kind of today to the speakers. Now, I don't have a gavel, nor do I have a contempt order, but I have a defibrillator, and it's hooked to the microphone. And so let's say you talk a little too long, things are going to get a bit shocking here on stage, okay, for all of you. Let me get to the... So the next person I have the opportunity to introduce this morning is the Deputy County Executive, J.P. Reyes. So J.P., I'll just give a quick introduction to most everybody in the room knows J.P., probably, if you want to say, the most second recognizable face in our county. But what you recognize about JP's face is that the man always smiles. In fact, I want to be at the meeting where he doesn't, just to say I was there. And what amazes me about that, and we were talking about this a minute earlier, is that people don't call JP to tell him what a great job the county's been doing, or how wonderful everything's going, or how beautiful some of our roads are. They call him to fix things. So with that, it's a pleasure to introduce my friend, our county fixer, J.P. Reyes.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Jeff, not only for emceeing today, but to the Northern Macomb Regional Chamber, Kelly, the entire team. This is probably not only one of our more favorite events every single year, but now with the rebranding of the Chamber, the way that we're connecting the communities, and the ability for us to champion and celebrate all the inspiring work being done here in the northern end of Macomb County, I think is a testament to the way that the communities just have this, committed unwillingness to really figure out how we continue to modernize, support, and uplift the celebrated legacy that's been happening up in these parts. And today, I not only wanted to take this opportunity to illustrate the commitment we have to the northern communities, but really highlight through the efforts that Vicki and the team at the Department of Planning and Economic Development have of really strengthening those ties that we have to the communities up here on the north end. I think a lot of it really ties into the whole notion of the building blocks of our communities. And as Jeff so eloquently highlighted, yes, while at times it feels like I'm the chief complaint officer for the county, these are the things that are critically important to the future of our community and the shared responsibilities that they have. Because whether it's us tackling a local road project where we understand the responsibilities that we have the county at the Department of Roads and advocating for those dollars that are coming through our partners at the state level here, but it's really bringing forward those solutions that are going to move our communities forward. And I think that's a key element to not only understanding the intricacies of the road projects up here, whether we're looking at structures, bridges, culverts, as Chairman Don Brown does continually, updating us on issues that may arise, that whether it's an agricultural area where we have some washout, or whether we need to work in tandem with Public Works Commissioner Candace Miller and her team. These are the things where, again, from the legacy of service that we've had together, where we're in tune that whether it's a specific property owner, whether it's a business, whether it's a community, that we need to develop a solution. And those are the things that we want to not only continue to do day in, day out, but ensure that we're advocating for those dollars, that whether they be at the local level to understand the investment that you as representatives of your communities are making, but how we can enterprise that investment, not only through the critical resources that we get it through the county, how we're advocating for those levels from a regional perspective, how it scales up to the state, and how we even are making an impact at the federal level too, here in the northern end of the county. I think the other thing when we look at the whole notion of those community building blocks, it really becomes the unique element of place here that we have in the north end. When you talk about a Richmond, when you talk about a Romeo, when you talk about an Armada, it really provides people with an opportunity to reflect on a special experience that they have. Whether it's about growing up here and someone that went to Romeo High School, myself and everything, these are things that help shape and mold you. And as Vicki's going to touch on a little bit later too, with the whole notion of how we're trying to build talent, it really is anchoring individuals to the shared and special experiences that we're seeing here on the north end. And sure, a lot of that comes from whether it's having a few special weekends at the good old days, or going to a Romeo Peach Festival, or, going to the creamery over in Armada and everything, or visiting an orchard. These are the things that Kelly and the team from the Chamber are not only highlighting those experiences, but illustrating how it is part of a growing number of nearly 3,000 businesses that dot the map here on the north end, employing thousands of individuals and generating millions upon millions of dollars every single year in our community. And what Vicki and team not only have done day in, day out and working with them is illustrating the fact that they are modernizing industries day in, day out. And I think it really stems from the agricultural heritage up here. And I think this is probably one of the proudest things that we do day in, day out. Whether it's the decades worth of service and innovation that we've had with the Purchase of Development Rights community, and how a few short weeks ago we were able to preserve another 100 acres. But it's taking those hundreds upon hundreds of farms, the products that are grown out here, the impact that they have in the food industry, and also the special destinations that they have across the entire county. My objective here this morning was not only to kind of set the table for what Vicki's going to touch on with a little bit more of the data science for the work that everyone in the Department of Planning and Economic Development does, but to illustrate that there is a commitment. There's not only commitment to work with each and every single one of you here in the North End, but I think more importantly, there's a commitment to understand how we continue to modernize our communities, how we continue to advocate for every single critical dollar that's out there to invest in your communities, and more importantly, how together we can be champions for the great stuff that's happening in Richmond and across northern Macomb County. So Jeff, before I get buzzed right here, again, I want to thank Jeff also for his continued stewardship and advocacy on the whole notion of what we're doing with transit here in the North End. We understand that that's always a sensitive topic, but what we're doing is illustrating that community partners that are given critical resources to invest in direct service is not only going to get those rides to our seniors, is not only going to get those flexible options to get individuals around our community, but is going to be good stewards of the public trust, and that's something that we're committed to every single day. So I want to thank everyone for coming out this morning. Kelly, thank you again for the forum, and as always, appreciate everyone coming out on a Monday morning. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Before I got involved in government, I didn't know what a planner was or did. And what I can tell you about that is much like talking about our students, they're the visionaries. These are the people that look out at a vacant or a dilapidated building and say, what might this be? And how can it improve our community? We have a planner here in Richmond that we should take a moment to introduce and recognize. Troy is there next to our mayor. And one thing I just want to touch on, and I hadn't thought about it before JP said it, the real visionary for our community partnership here in this community is sitting with us this morning. He was the guy that came to me that said, Jeff, this is what we need to do, and this is how we need to do it, and I'll help you figure that out. And that's our mayor, Tim Ricks. So with that, the county's chief planner, that person that really probably looks at things and says, what do I want this to be in the future, maybe even 30 years from now after I am gone. And that is their job. And that's why we have such a beautiful Macomb County now, is because of people who have that kind of vision. You can all have that kind of vision going forward. So with that, it's a pleasure to introduce Vicki Rowinski, the Macomb County Planning and Economic Director.
All right, so we're going to start off with a little bit of history. We're talking about the future, but let's look at where we've been. Now, when we look at the 8 counties that are here in northern Macomb County, historically go back to the 1950s. About 50% of our land use here in Macomb County, because that's what planners do, we talk about land use, was farms. Fast forward 70 years, we are now sitting about 20% of our land dedicated to farms. So in 3 generations, we have lost quite a bit of our farmland. And that's really important because I'm going to talk about our targeted industries and why those are very significant for our future. But I'm going to specifically talk to you, the students in Richmond, because you're going to be a part of this. So in 3 generations, we have built out Macomb County. And we've been very strategic. There's been master plans that date back to the 1950s on what we're going to do here in the county. However, we've also have to be very careful and strategic about that. Our Deputy Director, Jeff Schrader, he just conducted an agricultural study looking at the assets that we've got with our farm and what that means to Macomb County. We have 5 specific targeted industries, and you're going to see how they all kind of blend together, and a lot of that impact we're going to feel and see here in Macomb County. The biggest targeted industry is automotive. We're seeing a shift in automotive where it's more about mobility and technology. The second targeted industry, which Mark Hackle spoke about, is our aerospace and defense. Looking at those assets of making sure we're protecting those companies that protect us. The third targeted industry is automation and robotics. And I would be remiss not to mention that, Romeo, you got a phenomenal robotics team here. The Fighting Bulldogs in Romeo, the Fighting Pie in Armada, as well as the Richmond Blue Devils. Those robotic teams are the top 100 in the state going on to a world championship in Houston. That's something to be recognized. Thank you. The fourth targeted industry is warehousing and distribution. What we're seeing is that shift of consumer products getting to the manufacturing facility, that whole supply chain, but we're also seeing that shift of bringing that product to your households. When we look at our land use, especially that land that is zoned industrial, we see a great opportunity here, great paying jobs. When we look at the industrial land that we've got, for example, the Ford Romeo engine plant, what would be the best reuse of that particular piece of land when we're looking at 260 acres zoned industrial? It would be that mix of the targeted industry. And the fifth targeted industry is our food and ag. This is where we're seeing actually tremendous amount of growth, a lot of interest in this space, but this isn't your grandfather's farm. You know, getting back to that targeted industry where robotics and automation matter, that technology is being incorporated into our farms. We're looking at products not only being sold locally, which we love the whole farm to fork concept, we want to be able to get that product across the globe. And in order to do that, we've got to incorporate technology. And it comes back to the talent and the education systems that we've got here in Macomb County. And you guys are leading the way here in the north, which is phenomenal. But when we look at the key components of that ag plan, there's 5 things we want to make sure for that future generation that we're setting the table right. One is quality of life, making sure that we create Macomb County as the best place to live, work, play, grow a business. But that's also making sure we preserve and conserve, make sure that we spend ample time and money on our parks, because those are the things that people are looking to do. Environmental stewardship. You know, in Richmond, we just conducted a brownfield plan for the new Wendy's that's going up. You know, here we're taking a gas station, making it into a Wendy's. But that environmental stewardship, making sure that we keep that land in good use. Education and workforce development. You know, we sit as the convening organization for the Village of Romeo and Romeo High School, working with those students, making sure that they see the opportunities, that they may go off to college, but we've got to make sure the jobs are here waiting for them when they're done. The 4th one is infrastructure development and the land use policy. You know, this is getting back to that preservation, making sure that we keep the land that we've got, and also look at conservation of our farms. And the 5th one is healthy lifestyles. Here in northern Macomb County, we have the Macomb Orchard Trail, which is a phenomenal asset for those who want to recreate. And we want to keep it that way. So in order to do this, we got to put on our thinking hats, you know, look at the history, fast forward to the 4th generation, which is you, saying, you know, how do we best set up this community so that you come back here if you go off to college, or maybe perhaps you remain here and you continue to grow our communities. So with that, hopefully I didn't hit the buzzer. I don't want to get electrocuted today. Thank you very much. We love what we do here, as you can see, but we're always just one phone call away if you ever need help. Thank you.
I think my fear of the buzzer is keeping everybody on track. So on my list today, I'm not sure what list anybody else has in front of them, the next person that I have the pleasure of introducing today is our state senator, Dan Lowers. Dan is a guy who I've only recently come to work with because districts changed a little bit, and I'd always heard great things about him. I have a dear friend, a fellow named Ken Cummings up in Port Huron that I know he's worked with for years that does what I do for a living, and Ken said you're just gonna love Dan, and I found that to be the absolute case. But the beauty of Dan is that he not only brings his knowledge of years in Lansing to all of us, he brings knowledge of our rural kind of environment here, right? A lot of us move here to the country because we want to live in a rural area, and sometimes it saddens me to say, when people say, well, what do they grow by you? I said, real estate signs. But we all want to live in that rural area where we support our farmers and all of that. We're doing a lot of that in Richmond Township now. I don't think there's anybody from Richmond Township here this morning, where they're doing a lot of things with farmland development rights, which has to do with protecting farmland for the long term. There's some big issues coming in Lansing with regards to solar farms, these big places that they put in farm fields to collect energy. And so Dan, I'm sure, will be at the forefront of all of that going forward in Lansing, and maybe talk a little bit about those things this morning. Senator Lowers, thank you for being here this morning.
Well, I'll start with an apology. This is on my schedule for 9 o'clock, which, knowing Macomb and Mark Hackle and everybody, I thought that was kind of late, but I don't question my schedule. I get in trouble when I do that, so I just stick to what's on the calendar. But good morning, everyone. Oh boy, where to start and stop on this with Jeff with the ability to shock our hearts, huh? I just want let's go some quick history, because you're talking a lot about the agriculture and how this has all changed. So my grandfather used to have the stall beside Dino Savaggio. My grandfather Campbell, so he's in the vegetable business. My other grandfather was Lowers Dairy in Grosse Pointe Park, and delivered with a horse and a cart. And he had automated delivery back then. He said, we talk about autonomous vehicles. Grandpa said he could go to the bowling alley, which I think was code for saying bar, kind of. I mean, he never said bar, but he said we could go bowling, come back, get on the cart with the horse and the milk, and say, And the horse would take you to the stop, and then they would take you to the next stop, and he didn't have to drive anything. So we're getting back to that somehow. To where we are today, and that juxtaposition of now we're looking at, creating energy on these farms for electricity. Just so everybody knows, all corn and bean fields are photosynthesis converters, same as solar panels, I guess, right? We take sun and we turn it into energy that we can actually eat, or our animals can eat. So it's all kind of the same thing. But now, yeah, we have a major issue before us with the local control of that. I think is where the argument is right now. And if you're for local control, which I think most of the people in this room are somehow part of, local government, signing that petition to return local control for siting. The state was in such a rush to make this, green energy thing happen that they didn't really take the time to talk to locals about this. And I think there's so much easier solutions, better solutions. If we handled the solar siting or renewable energy siting the way we do, say, mobile home parks or something like that, hey, we need everybody to have them. You figure out where, maybe create a system where you could trade. If there's not room, if it doesn't fit the plan, to take land for that because you have more valuable opportunities in Macomb County, I would argue, for the use of your land. Maybe you trade that with, Sanilac or Huron or St. Clair County or somewhere, even on the west side of the state, wouldn't matter. But there are plenty of solutions out there that I think we could implement. And I hope we get an opportunity to do that. I hope the initiative passes and allows us to bring those decisions back to the locals so that we're not just making rash decisions. It is the state's opinion that, and the state government, not mine, but that putting a solar field on ground preserves it. I'm pretty torn on that one. I'm not sure how well that preserves open farmland space, and I don't think we're going to have tours of solar fields like we do at Blake's Orchard. But let's, I think, shift from that to some of the things I want you guys to know. I think that, the budget season we're in right now, that's what we're talking about, Lansing. That's all we'll be talking about probably for the next 2 months. We are heading into tougher times. The budget that's been proposed borrows money. I say it's the big borrow and steal budget. There's increased taxes in there. There's proposed rating of the teacher pension fund in order to fund things. When we blew through the $9 billion surplus last year, that proposal puts us right now with the current projections at a $17 million give or take from nothing in the state. That's way too thin for an organization the size of the state of Michigan's budget. So what that tells me, if we went from where we are to where we are proposing things today and where we're going, that it's really important that Macomb County continue to do what it does best. And the first thing that Macomb County does best is they really communicate well with the state legislature, in my opinion. The ISD does a great job. The chamber and the businesses do a good job. You guys run such a tight ship, such a well-run county, that it makes our job very easy. And I think sometimes people think that Macomb County gets what it gets because it has so many representatives and senators in the state, and sure that helps. But the number of people representing Macomb County in the state can't pass anything. We got to convince all those other people to go along with that. So it's your clarity of mission and organization and communication that makes that happen. Second thing I want you to do that you do so well is continue to donate to the state the way you do, because Macomb County produces far more economic activity than they ever get back from the state. So I want to compliment you on that and encourage you to keep doing that, because it's going to be important in the future. that's a joke, but it's true too. Yeah, I know it's kind of not funny, but it is funny. It's I at least want you to know that it is. We recognize it, we know it. It's extremely important. We look at those few counties right around here, and Macomb's the shining star. Oakland's always there competing with Macomb, of course, but really. I guess in my experience in Lansing, I don't get problems brought to me from Macomb County. I get requests to help with solutions, and that's all the difference in the world when you're trying to serve the way we are. So keep up the good work, I guess, and Jeff, I think I better cut out there. Are we going to have any time for questions or?
Yes.
Okay, I'm hoping so, because I always feel, it's when we get an opportunity to be in front of you, we want to know what's on your mind. It's hard to know what you're going to want to know from us without you asking us some questions. So I hope we get just a moment for that. But thank you.
So, Richmond and the greater Richmond area, we'll call it, is amazing for a number of different reasons. But here's something really amazing. Our last 4 members of the House of Representatives serving this area have come from either Richmond or Richmond Township. Think about that. How long we've had that kind of a voice in Lansing, where we can call and talk to our neighbor, literally, about an issue regarding our community and those communities around us. I would challenge our next speaker and all that come after her to make part of their job mentoring the person who eventually takes over for them. Because in Lansing, everybody is affected by what's called a term limit, which means they only have a finite amount of time to be there. And so I really, it's a pleasure to introduce State Representative Jamie Green. And just telling you a really quick story about her, out of the 4 people that have been there, the one thing that Jamie will do is one, always, I don't know what her position is on every issue in Lansing, but I can tell you if the word public safety comes up, whether it's police, fire, or EMS, not only is she supportive to what we do, but literally will text you when she's at something, a committee hearing, or something else where questions come up, to Senator Lauer's point, that she may not be the expert in, but she will contact us and say, what do you think about this? And it's always about public safety, and we appreciate that, because that way we can give her our input before she gets put on the spot with regard to something in Lansing. Jamie, it's always a pleasure.
And that's what's so important, that we have a representative government here in the United States. And that's what I take into account for everything I do, is though we are elected with either an R or a D on our name, but I still represent 90,000 people that have varying opinions, and it's important to take all of those into account. So thank you. And I promise I will commit to that. And maybe somebody sitting at this table will eventually take over and continue to serve Richmond and Lansing. So I want to start off by thanking the Northern Macomb Regional Chamber for continuing this event. So when we had the Richmond Chamber, this event started 15 years ago, 20 years ago maybe, and it was actually the premier event of the year here in town, where business owners got together and talked to their local elected officials, and that again is so important. And I also like to thank Kelly and her team for hiring Elizabeth Matrasak, somebody local here in Richmond. So now that you're bridging from Romeo to Richmond, and what a perfect person that you guys have brought onto the team. So I thank you for that as a community member as well. So we're talking about the economy here And things seem to be good, but as the senator said, we're watching closely, and especially this budget season, because I'm watching as more of a conservative perspective our budget and the state of Michigan potentially fall off a cliff. And so it's really important that me as a new member of the legislature, this is my first year in, that I have worked this past year on cultivating and developing relationships, not only with folks on my side of the aisle, but especially those across the other side of the aisle. And something that you may not even realize, that in Macomb County, the representatives here, we meet actually on a monthly basis and talk about roads and transportation and the economy, and we are working together on both sides of the aisle to make sure that Macomb, because Macomb is the leader in the state of Michigan on economy, on planning, on policies. I have not seen yet another county that runs as well as ours did. So we should all be proud of ourselves, really, for doing that, and that is something that we need to maintain. So something that, especially with the economy, that since I have kids here, I always love to use this example. So normally I have a pencil, but I don't have a pen today. But pretend this is a pencil. And so we have a pencil, and usually it just has a piece of lead, and it has a piece of wood, and it may have a metal and a rubber. So something very simple and basic. But that pencil has such a significant impact on the global economy, because when you have even just the tree that produced that wood, you have the people who cut the tree down, you have the machines that made that tree, you have the clothes that they wear, they have the widgets that go, the mechanics, the fuel, there's so much that even goes into something so simple as a pencil that we have to take into account the domino effect of what happens when a pencil is made. And it's so important that us as state leaders always take into account everything that we have in the economy and how one little thing can impact so much. So I guess with that said, because you guys have the best top-notch people talking about the economy here, but I just want to encourage you as business owners to continue your relationships with each other, with the chamber, with the state chamber, with NIFB and other organizations, or I see the bankers, the Community Bankers Association, because you guys have a powerful voice when it comes to policy in the state of Michigan. And when you guys all work together and come up with that unified voice and convey that, you actually have influence on decisions. And so events like this, just want to continue to encourage you to continue to be part of those organizations and work together. I don't have much more to say, because I actually like the opportunity, if we have questions, to be able to answer your questions, because again, that's the best way that I can represent you, is when I have your ideas and your opinions and can carry that from Richmond all the way to Lansing. So thank you so much.
Thank you. What Jamie just said came full circle to me as I sat there listening. I was fortunate enough to recently be at a dinner up in Lansing, hosted by the folks from AEW, local engineering firm, Wayne Omke and the group there. Most everybody knows Wayne in the room. And Jamie, I thought, well, I'm not going to know too many people here, and so Jamie came walking in, so it was always a pleasure to see a familiar face when you're in a room that you're not going to know a lot of people. And there's a woman with her who I don't know. And so Jamie quickly introduces me to Senator Kleinfeld, who is a D versus an R. And with all the stuff you see on the news about these folks just infighting and clawing and saying sometimes horrible things about each other, it was so refreshing to see the two of them sit at dinner and join them for conversation and realize it really doesn't matter, that we're all the same, that they're all there just doing the right thing. These are local folks at our state capitol, in the case of our representative and our senator, just doing the right thing. And for the most part, they really don't care about that letter at the end of their name. And so thank you to you both, I know, for being a part of those tough conversations in Lansing. We all truly appreciate it. With that, I don't know, I guess we'll handle some questions, and I might, here. I'm going to let JP decide how we're going to field it.
Okay, who has a question to ask? And I'm going to throw you a microphone. That was a good one, Jeff. Anyone have anything? Oh, Chairman Brown's going to break the ice for us this morning.
Thank you all for participating this morning. It's important that Northern Macomb County get the attention from our state legislators as well as our county, and they've always been there for us. We appreciate you being here. I'm chairman of the Macomb County, or the Michigan Association of Counties Committee on Environment and Land Use. One of the issues we're also tracking is a statewide assessment on septic fields. It's a mandatory one-size-fit-all approach that'll cost everyone across the state, $500 on every 5-year basis as is proposed right now. I was wondering if you could tell us what the state of that legislation is. Macomb County, we've got, I think, the best process. It's a voluntary time of sale inspection service that goes and inspects the septic fields at time of sale. So if there are residents are exchanging a lot of money when it comes time to sell a house, can make those repairs, not have it mandated and shoved down across all the counties. And probably a burden on our planning system. Can you tell us a little bit about where that legislation is and our association is opposing it, but we're wondering what you're doing and what do you hear on that, and what's the odds of us slowing that down and stopping it completely?
Thank you, Chairman Brown. We're going to relay the race this one. Obviously, a big topic for our Environmental Health Division.
We can probably talk loud enough can you hear me in the back? Yeah. Okay. So, good news is we don't have time to do a whole lot more before the year's over when it comes to slowing legislation down or stopping legislation. And if anyone isn't familiar with it, call our offices and we'll fill you in it, or call Don. This is another effort that we've seen in several of them lately, where the state really just wants to make it simple, and to make it simple, we'll just pass a statewide, sanitation or septic policy, and it's so, I understand the motivation behind it, but one size does not fit all. When you look at Michigan, the variability of soils alone, in the UP, they have areas where there's hard stone just below the surface, so you have to have a different system. Monroe has, some areas like that. We have variability here. And $500 it wouldn't work, right? I see a pattern happening in the state lately, and it's where you put a system in place that the county or municipalities are supposed to take care of, implement, administer, but you starve them for resources so badly that they eventually cry uncle and hand it over to the state. And to me, that's what this looks like, another one of those, where we got this great idea, you're going to love it, you can take care of it, you can charge $500 per homeowner, every 5 years. Well, when you start doing the math on personnel and what it would take to implement this thing, there's no way in the world you can do it for $100 per home per year. So you either got to really increase that rate or do something different, or probably both, and that would mean turning it over to EGLE and letting them administer the whole thing, and that is not the way to do the best job, I guess, is my opinion. So because it's an election year, there's not a heck of a lot that's going to get done by the time we get to summer recess. Because we got to do budget yet, that's probably all we can get done between now and the summer break. So that's the good news. The important thing is that everyone be as vocal constructively as you can about defeating this thing. If we need to do this, it needs to be done on a county by county basis at a minimum, so that you can, my gosh, is there any county that would have more variability in this, implementing this, than Macomb? Where we have all kinds of dwellings, right? We have people living in condos and larger structures, individual homes. You have municipal systems. You have individual systems where everyone has their own well and their own septic. So it's an important. It's been around. I'm in my 11th year. We've seen it every year that I've been there, or every session that I've been there. This has been proposed because other states have it. That's the first thing they say is, hey, other states have it, so we should have it too. I don't think that's a good enough reason to do it. But the difference is between the previous years and this session is that there's different leadership, and so it's possible that something could go differently than it has in the past. Jamie, what do you?
No, I would concur with that. I don't want to yell as much, but that's where being part of those organizations and that you have that they made a stance with the commissioners and they're opposing it, and you've got to hope and negotiate that they will have influence on that. You're a little bit more positive than I have a little bit more doom and gloom because I've talked to the bill sponsor, because this is something that I represent also Lapeer and St. Clair County, and I am being flooded with emails. They flood me. I don't know if they flood you, but they flood me with this. And so I have talked to the bill sponsor on the House side, so hopefully maybe the Senate can roll it back a little bit. But it is on our radar. Thank you, Commissioner, again, for bringing that up. But then that goes to prove the point that I made of belonging to those organizations and making sure that when a bill, tracking bills are really important for your organizations that are important to you, and then submitting a card or even coming and giving testimony. Because just like that pencil, we don't know the unintended consequences and the domino effect that every decision that we have will make. And I just think of the seniors and that this becomes even burdensome when it's not even necessary. And so that's important that the state continues to, we always talk about pro-jobs, but we cannot be pro this but then anti this, and that's what it is. It's like we're pro people but then we're going to put a burdensome tax on them, and so we have to always be cautious with that. Thank you.
We'll get to another question, but just to segue very briefly over, there's also another proposal in the Senate, to create a new water tax that everybody would pay in order to guarantee water as a right to, well, I can't even say that. Yeah, just as a right, but it is to subsidize the cost of water for people who can't afford it or would qualify for it. It's another example of well-intentioned but totally wrong approach, because we already have that. If you're not familiar with that, contact Commissioner Candace Miller, in her office, and she will fill you in.
Thank you. Other questions?
Anyone else?
What's most important to you right now, or what's your biggest challenge? Other than hiring people, because we all have that one.
Anyone else? Alrighty. So I'm going to say one more thing then. What I would like to say is there's been a lot of conversation today about echoing just the connectivity that we have across all layers of not only government but service. And I want to give a tremendous round of applause to Senator Lowers and Rep. Green, because as they've highlighted, whether it's the issues with local control, whether folks are talking about solar, whether folks are talking about gravel, whether it's some of these implications of what we're looking at increased costs to the environmental health programs that we deploy, or even water affordability, they've approached this not only through the lens of service, but the connectivity to the communities that they represent and they live in. And I think that's a testament and a legacy to stuff happening up here in the North End. So I think Chairman Brown wants to hop in with one more thing, and then Jeff's going to wrap up for us.
Another thing, since we got the planners here, where are we at with the broadband study that we're doing? It's very important to us. I know I've been working with the department on the broadband study to try to bring more access and affordability to broadband services to the northern end of Macomb County. Maybe you could speak to that a bit.
Thanks, Chairman Brown. Vicki, this one's going to be for you.
As we know, when we were going through the pandemic, the accessibility to broadband definitely was exacerbated. It didn't go away. So, our team are part of a tri-county summit with Oakland County, Wayne County, as well as the City of Detroit, looking at our broadband. We brought on the Merit Network to really help us understand, what does that infrastructure look like, and the ability for us to go out there and bring down some of those dollars to help with the infrastructure costs so that it's not falling on the individual residents. So that study has been concluded. John Kilkazi on the team here works really closely with that Merit Network. We're keeping an eye on all of those grant opportunities, whether it's from the state of Michigan or from the federal government, and how do we help offset those costs. It's also really important that we work with our utility providers who don't have connectivity here, especially in the northern Macomb. When we talk about the targeted industries, automation, robotics, all this high tech, that doesn't happen if we're not connected. And so it's really important for us to make sure that this does remain important to us, that we work with our partners, but also we're collaborating. You know, we're a louder voice when you add the 3 counties versus just Macomb County going at it alone.
All right. Other questions? All right. Again, I want to thank all of our speakers for being here. I want to ask that the chamber staff stand up for a moment and be recognized for putting this all together. The staff here at Maniaci's for a wonderful breakfast. I think there's only one of them here, but hopefully they hear our applause in the back. And I saved the last recognition for this guy. So, this gentleman was an educator. He understood the importance of informing people. He was a local elected official here, out in Richmond Township, and then a county elected official for many, many years. He was also the founder of this event. He is the guy that years ago said we need to inform the public, and the best way to do it is to bring them together with our elected officials so that there can be this, not only this dialogue, but the dialogue that occurred before, and I'm certain to some degree will occur after breakfast for a little bit. Keith Ranger, will you stand up and take a round of applause? So with that wraps us up. This says 10 a.m., thank you for attending. So I think the good news is I didn't have to use the defibrillator today. The bad news is you guys got to go back to school a little sooner, but I hope it was better than first hour. And with that, I guess I would encourage you all to use the last 20 minutes or so, or maybe 15 if Kelly wants to say a couple of words, to grab these folks before they get out of here, because I've always found at these events some of the best conversations can occur when we're networking and talking. So spend a minute with your neighboring businesses, spend a minute with our elected officials who have taken time to be here this morning, spend a minute with our school superintendent who's here with his group, Brian Walmsley, and ask those questions that maybe you didn't want to ask in a big group. So with that, Kelly?
Thank you, Jeff, for short notice taking on the MC position. I appreciate your local connection here, and you were very good at this today. Also, thank you to everybody that came out to support us on this first event here in downtown Richmond. We appreciate that support, and we have a mixer coming up here on April 23rd at Starcraft Brewery from 5 to 8. So, free event. You got to buy your own stuff to drink, but an opportunity to come out and meet some more of our business connections here in northern Macomb County. Again, thank you, and we hope to see you soon.